The Bible is a book full of people shaped by hope. They waited, they hoped, they expected. Abraham hoped for a son of his own, a firstborn, a miracle, a son of laughter, but God asked for a sacrifice. The Israelites hoped for a liberator, a leader to bring them out of Egypt, but God gave them a stuttering outcast, more labor, and broken backs. God's people hoped for a king of their choosing, a soldier, a mighty one, the fear of their enemies, but God gave them a shepherd king. The remnant hoped for a return from exile, a rebuilding of the temple, a return to glory, but God gave them silence. 400 years without a word. We wait, we hope, we expect.
Good morning. Good to be with you, fellowship. My name's Rick. I'm teaching this morning because the baptism wasn't available, but he could have preached and it would have been just fine. All right, well done, William, well done. So I love trees. Anybody who knows me well knows how much I love trees. I have a history with trees. When I lived in Chicagoland, we bought our first house. It was kind of a house, you could call it a house. It was actually a cottage that someone turned into something they could sell as a house, but I loved it because it had 6 huge oak trees in the backyard. And I love oak trees and maples and in Tennessee, the tulip poplars. I love their strength. I love their resilience. I love their beauty. I love their presence. I love when the rain falls on the leaves, and I love when the wind blows through the tree. I love trees. So we went to our second house in Chicago. Our family had grown, and we went to a house that was more actual house and a little bit larger, room enough for our family, and it had 3 huge oak trees. And I was like, that's not 6, but I'll take 3. And they all died. Thank you. Those with compassion gifts, thank you, all right? So when we moved to Tennessee, I was like, we've got to have trees. And so we moved into Farragut, and the yard didn't have all the oak trees, but it had lots of large trees, and particularly a beautiful large maple. And so over time, we had to get rid of a couple of trees to add an addition. Then 2 of them got diseased, and then my beautiful maple tree, a microburst came through our neighborhood about as wide as this platform, and it hit exactly on my maple tree, picked it up and dumped it on my son's car like firewood, like a bonfire. So when we came to get what I consider my last house, please Jesus, I don't want to move again, my last house, and I walk out the back and there's woods everywhere, and beside the deck is like a 3-foot diameter white oak that's 70-something feet tall, and I'm like, I've arrived. And then we did some construction that put that tree and another my favorite large oak tree in danger. And so the kids would call, Mom, can we speak to Dad? No, he's praying for the trees. Don't bother your dad. He's singing to the trees, right? So you would think, as much as I love trees, that I would be in despair right now because there's not a leaf left on my trees in my woods. They're scattered everywhere. Every day, I clean them up and they come back. Why would someone who loves trees, who finds such grounding and rooting spiritually and being among the trees, why would that person not panic at the loss of the leaves? Because there's something else I know. Spring is coming. And under that ground is life that I cannot see, and growth that is yet to emerge. And so I wait in hope of what is coming. There's a strange beauty to this moment. Without the leaves, I can see each of the trees, and I can see more perspective on how everything looks in my yard. And in the morning, it's where the sun comes up, so there's this orange glow with these dark trees against the sunrise. There's so many wonderful, strange beauty, but the strangest beauty of all is the hope in my heart that sitting among those trees causes me to think of what is to come. And I don't live in Chicago anymore, so it's not May, it's February. You know what I'm saying? So there's hope. This Advent season we're in, it's about hope. It's about longings not fulfilled now. It's about this strange beauty of he has come and he is coming. And in between, there's a lot of winter. But his faithfulness that brought him the first time assures us he will bring it back. And underneath in the unseen is a kingdom that is growing and life is brimming and growth is happening we have not yet seen the fulfillment of. And this is our series of the long-expected Jesus because we need to know there's something beyond what we can see. But we need to remember this moment matters too. So we've been teaching this, all four of our teaching pastors are teaching, and so I want to just go back and take a clip, a short clip from JC, make a comment on that, and then RD, because you'll hear this theme and it'll give us some language for how we think about this moment that we're in. So let's watch this clip from JC.
And as we wait, we cling to the promises of who God is and say, God, we believe that you will provide. The name that was given to the Lord because he provides is Jehovah Jireh. The Lord provides. So we join with Abraham. We join with all of our forefathers. We join with all before us and say, Lord, as we wait, we trust you'll provide. So Advent is not just come on Christmas, it's come on King. Your kingdom come in my life. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Come on, King. Know it's coming and know he's here. And don't be surprised at some of the winter that you experience because there's a strange beauty in that. JC, we went on to say that he's not fixing, he's forming. We see this in Abraham's ability to do this in Hebrews chapter 11, we read this. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he had received the promises within the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, though through Isaac shall your offering be named. And he considered God was able even to raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. Abraham developed the capacity to know that even if I go through with what does make no sense to me at all, God's still at work and he'll keep his promise. I can see what I cannot see by faith. The strange beauty of being in a moment where it just doesn't look right and yet you know. Then RD shared with us and about Moses.
For 40 years, I believe God ministered to and shaped Moses in the wilderness, right? These waiting years, they were not wasted years for Moses. God was preparing him for something greater. And in all of our ordinary lives, the simple parts of our lives, which is our life, we can see it as eternity. God preparing us, God moving in us, right? And we have access to things that Moses didn't have. When God says to Moses in the burning bush, I will be with you, we have Emmanuel, God with us, in a way Moses could never have God with him. Moses could never know that in the way that you and I can know God with us, right? That's Jesus, his name, Emmanuel, God with us. Here's our story, our own exodus, our own wilderness, our own slavery, all of these things. Jesus simply says, I'm with you. I'm with you. The message of Christmas is not that God's come here to fix all the problems in the world, because there's still all the problems in the world. He's come to save us, to rescue us, right? To fix that problem. You better believe it. But then right in the midst of all the pain and brokenness, God simply says, you know what? I'm not going to fix that, but I'm going to be with you. Do you believe? It's like, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. I'd love for you to fix it more. And I know God says, I know you would. But because you want to go here, and I want to take you here.
So RD and I were talking about his year of losing his dad this last week and the teaching and all, and that's where I said, gosh, RD, isn't there such a strange beauty to how God works? And he would say, yeah, that's exactly what it is. That he would take us here, and we actually really want to go there. And in doing so, we would start to learn there's something underneath. There's something going on. There's life. And even the thing that is the most grievous and hurtful and loss that we recognize and name, and we experience out of that loss, and yet we can still see him. And so in Moses, in learning to understand Emmanuel, God with him, in Psalm 90, Moses writes this song of Moses. So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? He's not saying, hey, this is going great. I'm happy, we're good. Thank you for all the wonderful things you're doing for me. He said, how long will it be? And yet, have pity on your servants, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love that we may rejoice and be glad for all our days. He's asking, can you show up as Emmanuel with us every morning, every day? How did he learn that? From the manna he received in the morning, he learned to trust and know what was coming that he could not see. And he right-sized himself. He right-sized himself by saying, I'm not God. Give me a heart of wisdom to follow your will. Give me a heart of wisdom to follow your way, Lord. I want to say something about this teaching team. I regularly have lots of meaningful conversations with JC, RD, and with Greg, who will teach next week. Here's what I will tell you. This isn't a show. This is how we live. This is what we talk about. We're not saying these things to you because it's the thing you say at Advent. We're saying these things to you because we need to know them ourselves every day. Because we've wintered in our souls and our lives, just like you do. And there's this strange beauty in knowing how to see and to see from the right sides. David says the same thing. We're going to look at David later this morning. David says, "O Lord, make me know my end and what is the measure of my days. Let me know how fleeting I am. Behold, you have made my days a few handbreadths, and my lifetime is as nothing before you. Surely all mankind stands as a mere breath." David recognizes, I'm not God. I can't know. I can't understand. I can't come up with this on my own. I've got enough experiences to tell me this isn't good, this isn't right, you're not there, and yet, I know. Help me to know. I will tell you the truth. I do not think that I am God, but I think I should be. I think I should be. So the first thing we learn in this Advent in waiting for hope, this strange beauty, is to know we are created to be gods. We are not created to be gods. This is the freedom. This is the release. This is the strange beauty of this flesh. I want to be in charge and be God. And the Spirit he gives us, no, you don't. You want me to be. You just don't know how to live in it. And I'm here in the winters to teach you. I have daily reminders that I am not God. You would think I would figure out by now, but I still keep fighting for it. I have annual reminders too. It's called Christmas lights. I have a very unhealthy relationship with Christmas lights. My wife is this incredible, I'm gonna move this for just a second. She's this incredible hospitality decorator. And so it's important that the outside of our house look as our inside does, as we have so many events and parties during the Christmas season. So this last week, this little area right here, the lights would not come on. 4 bushes, a wreath, and a star and a spotlight on the nativity scene. So it's my job, at least in our family as the man of the house, to fix that. So on a rainy, cold night, so that it's ready for the party, I start my 3-hour journey of fixing the lights. I plug them in individually and they work. I plug them in collectively, they don't. They kick off the, what's it called, the GIF, GFI? Yeah, GIF, that's the name. GFI, right? 25 times. And somewhere towards the end, On the bush closest to the nativity scene, my boot, because I'm trying to keep my feet dry, catch on a net. And I have suddenly lost my balance. And I am hurling headlong into the bush through the nativity scene towards the house. I hit the star, my AirPod pops out, I hit the wall with my head. On the way, Joseph hits Mary, who hits the crib, breaks her arm off, her hand off. And let me tell you this, when you hit your head on the brick wall and the nativity scene turns into a mosh pit, it was not a silent night. It was not a holy night. Nothing was calm, and the dang lights weren't bright. You know what I'm saying? I went to Elders Ace Hardware in Rocky Hill. Sweet young woman behind there, she said, come back soon. I said, oh, you do not want to see me back here. Nope. I would like to say this, though. I think this is important to know. We've had a Christmas miracle. Through prayer and super glue, Mary has her hand back, so. Lord, have mercy on us all. I am so human. I get tired of it. I get tired of things not working. We just lived through COVID. I don't like that things don't work. But more importantly, I just took 5 names off of my Christmas card list because they're not with us anymore. Some of my friends have been beaten up badly during these last 3 years. 2 years. I guess it's 3, 2020, 2021, 2022. David says, surely a man goes about as a shadow, surely for nothing they are in turmoil. Man heaps up wealth and does not know who will gather. And now, O Lord, for what do I want? What do I wait? My hope is in you. My hope, like I look at this thing and I'm like, this is not going to end well. I look at geopolitical reality, right? Economics, elections, My goodness gracious, this is not going well. But that's not my hope. My hope is in you. And I see what I can't see. I see it here. And there's this strange beauty to wanting things to be different, but being secure when they're not. Being at rest when they're not. Knowing you belong to something more than this. It's how we not only survive through the winter, but we find hope in the winter seasons of our lives. So Saul and David and Solomon give us a little more picture of Advent in this kingdom. And just to add another layer to our story, besides we are created to be God's, capital G-O-D apostrophe S, not created to be little G-O-D-S. So if you have your Bibles and want to follow along, turn to 1 Samuel chapter 8, 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 4. To a group of people who decided, we're not waiting. We're not. We're taking things into our own hands. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 4 and 5. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, behold, you are old and your sons do not walk in your ways. You're about to go away and we don't want your sons as our leaders, right? We don't want the prophets to be leading us. So now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations. They're surrounded by nations with kings. They're surrounded by warring nations. They want what every individual in every nation wants. Every individual and every nation wants security, prosperity, and glory. And they don't see how they're going to get that in their circumstances without their own king. But this thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed, Lord. Samuel's like, something's not right about this. And the Lord said to Samuel, obey the voice of the people. Just remember that phrase. Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you. They have rejected me from being king over them. All those things we cling to, believing that's what's going to make it okay, that's who's going to do it, that's where this is going to go, this is how I'm going to take control, is an active rebellion against his sovereign goodness and his kingship. And according to all the deeds that they have done from the day I brought them out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are also doing so to you. Samuel, I know these people. And they want this, and they want this, and they're demanding this, and they do not trust that I will give it to them, so they don't trust you. Now then, obey their voice, only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. And Saul does just that. He warns them and warns them and warns them. And I can say it basically in this thing. You want your king? You think you deserve your king? God's going to give you your king. And let me tell you what he's going to do. He's going to take and take and take and take and take and take and leave you with nothing. Because that's the human heart given power, unsubmitted to the God. You're going to get what you want, but it's not what you think. But the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. They said, no, there shall be a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. We need a king that will fight our battles. What is actually happening here is we need a king that will get us what we deserve. And here's our list: security, prosperity, and glory. So they get Saul, who is head and shoulders above everyone, a warrior. He's the bomb. So they get Saul, and here's what happens. Two stories, very quickly, you can read more about this, to tell you what you get when you get Saul as king. Saul waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattering from him. So Saul said, bring the burnt offering here to me and the peace offerings. Not his thing, not what he was entrusted to do. He had clear instructions. He was not to offer those things. Those things belonged to the prophet Samuel. And he offered the burnt offering. As soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him and greet him. You're going to learn so much about Saul in 5 minutes here. Saul will cover his behind above all things. Saul is insecure, and so he doesn't want to lose the people. He needs the people. He wants them to follow him, because if they're not following him, he doesn't feel secure. He doesn't feel strong. He doesn't know what to do, so he's got to keep them following, keep them following, keep them following. And he just isn't willing to wait. Samuel was there on the right day. It just wasn't on Saul's schedule. And he panicked. Because if God's man's not going to show up, then I need to be God's man. Which is, if God's not going to show up, I need to be God. Samuel said, what have you done? And Saul said, when I saw that the people were scattering from me and that you did not come within the days appointed, which is, by the way, everything about Saul. When you did this and they did, everybody's the problem but Saul. You didn't come the days appointed, and the Philistines had mustered at Michmash. I said, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord, the favor of the Lord, so I forced myself and offered the burnt offering. I did the noble thing. I didn't want to, Samuel. I knew it wasn't the best thing, but I had to seek the Lord. No. Here's another picture you get. He's told to go out and slay the Amalekites and to just completely take everything out. Animals, he's supposed to go take everything out, right? And so he goes and he doesn't get rid of the animals like he's supposed to. Clear instructions. Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning, and it was told Samuel, here, you right here, ready? This is Saul. Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up a monument for himself and turned and passed on and went down to Gilgal. He set up a monument. Look at what I've done. Behold, me. And Samuel came to him and said to Saul, and Saul said to him, blessed be you to the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. This would be like telling your child, clean up the kitchen, but don't eat the cookies, and you walk in and they've got chocolate all over them, all over their hands, and you're like, hey, I did what you said. Well, actually, I can't hear you for the sound of the sheep and the goats. And Samuel said, what then is the bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the oxen that I hear? Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you pounce on the spoil and do what was evil in the sight of the Lord? Why couldn't you just do what he said, Saul? Could you just not do what he said? Saul's like, what? Get the crumbs out. What? Samuel said, though you are little in your own eyes, are you not the head of the tribes of Israel? Do you understand what he just said? You have made yourself so small, Saul, because your world is about you. May I say as an aside, you want a small world? Become the center of it. You want an eternally expanding world? Then keep learning by grace how to yield to the king of it. The Lord appointed you king over Israel, Saul. And the Lord sent you on a mission and said, go devote to destruction the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are all consumed. He sent you on a mission. And Saul said to Samuel, I obeyed him. I did what he said. Get off my back. I have gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me. I have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and I have devoted the Amalekites to destruction. Who are you to accuse me? And then he says, but the people, they took the spoil, sheep and oxen, the best of the things devoted to destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal. Hey, it's these people. And if I were sarcastic, Samuel, I would have said, you know, it's a shame God didn't give us a king to lead them. It's always, the people. It's never ever Saul. Saul said to Samuel, and he outlines the sin, and listen how Saul repents. Let me rephrase that. Listen how Saul faux repents, regrets, and then he asks for what he always wants. I have sinned, for I have transgressed against the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. He said, okay, I've sinned, but it's because I just was afraid, because he doesn't trust God. And then he said, I have sinned, yet honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me, that I may bow before the Lord your God. I know I messed up, but can we just go back and you can honor me in front of everybody? And I'll bow down to your God? You may think, man, you're really being hard on Saul. I don't mean to be hard on Saul. I just know exactly what it's like to be him. I know what it's like to have to repent of that. It's really about me. And I can't wait. And I would have done that for you, but there's these 3 reasons why I really couldn't do that. So here's what I want us to take away from Saul, because now we're going to transition to David. Here's something I really want us to take away, is this. We are created to be gods. We are not created to be gods. And our hearts are conflicted and journeys confronted. Every day is a battle in the war for hope. So can you pull that out? Let me just tell you. Saul had a moment. He didn't hope in the Lord, he hoped in himself. And he hoped in the people following him. And he hoped in the people liking him. And he hoped in being able to please the people. And he hoped in being able to keep things in control. And he hoped in himself to make what he wanted to have happen. And we do every day. You are constantly going to be conflicted between your flesh that wants to be your own hope or find your hope in a family member, a relationship, a government, whatever it is you're looking for hope in. I am telling you, you're in a war for hope. And I'm in a civil war because my flesh wants one thing and the spirit in me and my identity in Christ is about something totally different. And Advent is a great time for us to remember, a great time for us to remember we are not yet to that place where our hope is fully on him, but one day it will be. In the meantime, every day we have to remember our hope is in him. It's not in me. It's not in this church. God forbid it's in your pastors and elders or anybody else. It's in him. And the only answer, the only response is to submit to him. And if you're like me and it gets really hard for you to remember sometimes that he is the one I can hope in, you're in good company, because here's what John the Baptist said in prison. Now, when John heard in prison about the deeds of the Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?" Are you really the one that I put my hope in? I ask that question more than once, regularly. Can I really hope in you, or do I need to do I need to do this? Do I need to make this work? You're not moving the way I thought you should, God, so I'm going to find a way to step into it. Instead of trusting that the season that we're in, the moment that we're in, is about learning to find our security and our prosperity, spiritual prosperity, and our glory, his glory, in the midst of the moment when all creation groans, where your marriages are hard, where your kids don't always obey as you think they would or could or should, and you either blame them or blame yourself or blame the culture or blame something, instead of actually surrendering the fact, I think we have a sovereign God and I don't even know the mystery of why this is the way it is. When you look at a world that is increasingly torn, and people that are increasingly torn, and losing jobs and losing parents, and racial and sexual tensions and all the stuff that's there, and everything raining, waiting and hoping, can you see that underneath that, the kingdom has come and it is coming? And it's designed to be in this moment through your hearts. And God needed a king who could see that. And so he sent Samuel to find another king. And he went to Jesse, and Samuel started with Jesse's oldest son and just went down the line. And God said, no, no, no. And then he got to the runt of the litter, a shepherd boy with a harp. And God said, that one. And Samuel's like, they're not going to buy this. And God's like, that's really not the point. Man looks at the outward appearance. I'm looking for a heart. I'm looking for a heart that will, in the battle for hope, in the war for hope, continually turn to me. And so in a famous scene in David's life that we're all aware of, and the Philistines said to David, am I a dog that you came to me with sticks? And the Philistines cursed David by his gods. And the Philistines said to David, come to me and I will give you your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the field. You can't get more threatened than that. Some of you are scared to death by something right now in your life. An addiction, a rejection, a shame, a past, a job issue, a marriage issue. Some of you are scared to death. You are in such a winter season. You feel so threatened in this moment. My talking about it is causing your chest to tighten. You are feeling like, I'd like to get out of this room. How do I know that? Because it happens to me too. I'm in a war for hope too. And what does David say? David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head, and I will give the dead bodies of the lost, of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all the assembly may know that the Lord saves, not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give me your hand. What did the people want? We're not waiting around. We're going to find a king who will what? Fight our battles. And David said, I can't fight this battle, but he will. And we follow in David's life, and every time he says the battle is the Lord's, we see things go. And every time he gets passive and doesn't go to battle, like he did with Bathsheba, he gets into a lot of trouble. And every time he takes it onto himself to be the warrior, he gets in a lot of trouble. And he counts them in. You see, the thing we have to remember in waiting and hope, the battle is the Lord's. And whatever you are scared of today, and whatever has you defeated, and whatever has you hopeless, stop trying to be God. If your marriage is a disaster, stop blaming him. Stop blaming her. You are the issue. Am I saying it's all your fault? It's irrelevant whose fault it is. What is relevant is that he is king and God and sovereign, and we are to surrender to what he's up to. I've got to save my child, that's a terrible idea. Love your child, care for your child, create boundaries, provide appropriate resources. Don't try to save your child. It's not your job. We got to get everything straightened out in the church in this country. No, we don't. We just have to be faithful. I'd like to see it work. That's not my job. I've got to stop this addiction tomorrow. Look, your addiction is hurting you and everybody around you, and it's completely subverting any hope you have of maturity. But if your first step is to stop your addiction before you surrender and yield, you're just going to do it more. The king is not saved, David says, by a great army. A warrior is not delivered by his great strength. The war horse is a false hope for salvation, and by its great might, it cannot rescue. Behold, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him and on those who hope in his steadfast love, that he may deliver their soul from death and keep them alive in famine. It is the belief that he is at work, and underneath all of this is a good God who loves us and cares for us and provides for us, who is our security, who is our prosperity, and who is our hope and glory. David says, our soul waits for the Lord. He is our help and our shield, for our heart is glad in him because we trust in his holy name. Let your steadfast love, O Lord, be upon us, even as we hope in you. We cannot see it, but this strange beauty tells us it's coming. First here, and then all over. And so God says to David as we close, when your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish the kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. David doesn't build the temple. He has to wait on that too. I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. And when he commits iniquity, I will discipline him with the rod of men, with the stripes of the sons of men, but my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away from before you. Just sit with that. David, I'm going to take care of Solomon. He's a hot mess. But it isn't about his obedience. It's about my faithfulness to whom I've chosen. By the way, you know who Solomon's mom was? Bathsheba. That's a story full of a strange beauty, isn't it? And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. The Davidic covenant, born out of the question of who is God, born out of a turning to him for hope, born out of a belief that the battle is the Lord's even when we fail in doing our part. Born out of it being his kingdom, born out of it now comes this prophecy. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. This is the King who is yet emerging. And of the increase of his government and of peace, there will be no end on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. God will give you a king, but not one you deserve. As a matter of fact, the more time you spend trying to get what you think you deserve, the more likely you are to miss what you don't deserve, which is the grace of that king, because this king will give and give and give and give and give so lavishly and so fully that the whole universe will honor him for eternity for what he's done for you. And you will spend your eternity in his lavish presence. And you won't have everything you need. You'll have more, so much more. And the truth is, in this strange beauty, you can taste it right now because he has come and he is our hope. Let us stand and worship him.